In this video, we're going to create this interactive process timeline. I have a slider here, and if I drag the slider head to this red marker, a pop-up will appear, and the marker changes colors to show that it has been visited. When I reach the next marker, another pop-up will appear, and this marker will also change colors. And I have 5 of these markers in total, with each one having the same behavior. This is a great interaction if you want to showcase a process or a timeline of events like I did here. So how can you actually build this? First off, you need a slider. Go to the Insert tab, select this here, and choose a slider style that you like. Then you can drag it out on the slide and make it as long as you want. I'm gonna set the end value here to 1000 because having more steps between the start and the end means that the slider will move more smoothly. And I'm gonna go to the slider format tools and set the transparency of the track fill to about 80% so it's barely visible. Next up, I'm gonna need some circles. I added 5 red circles here. These will be my markers. I'm going to select all of them and send them to the back. It's important that they're behind the slider so that they don't block the user from clicking on the slider head. Now I'm going to add a visited state to the red circle because I want it to turn green when its associated pop-up has been visited. To do this, I'm going to duplicate the normal state and create a new custom state which I'm going to be calling green. Now I'm not adding the default visited state because that would turn these circles into buttons and I don't want my users to click on them. I just want them to change from red to green once the pop-up layer is visited. I'm gonna then double click on the format painter and apply this second state to all my 5 markers. Now each marker has a normal state of red when a layer is not visited and the custom state which is colored green, showing that the pop-up layer was visited. Now I'm gonna create 5 layers and each of my pop-ups is gonna be on a separate layer. If you have other layers on your slide other than these pop-ups and you want to make sure that those layers remain visible while you're operating the slider and showing or hiding pop-up layers, then make sure to right click on the pop-up layers and uncheck this option here. On each pop-up layer, I have a rounded rectangle and some text boxes. And I added a triangle to further emphasize which step this pop-up belongs to. Once I create all of my 5 pop-ups, I'm gonna go back to my base slide and under each red marker, I will add a text box which will show the year in which that specific event from the pop-up happened. I'm going to set the initial state of these text boxes to hidden, and I only want these to show once the layer associated with this year has been visited. Now, it's not quite clear that they are set to an initial state of hidden by looking at them. If this were a shape, it would be grayed out to show us that, hey, this is hidden when the slide starts. But this white text doesn't have any effect applied to it, so you just have to keep in mind that these are hidden from now on, and they will remain hidden until we decide to show them. Good, now all of our elements are in place. So when do we show the pop-up? Well, let's focus on the first pop-up and create the functionality. Then we're going to apply the same logic for our other pop-ups. So the plan is to show the first layer as long as the slider head is within the bounds of the first red marker. So I'm gonna go to the slider design tools here and move the slider head until it reaches the left border of the circle. And make a note of its position, which is displayed right here. Then I'm gonna move the slider head to the right border of the circle and make a note of its position here as well. At this point, I can go to the triggers panel and add this trigger to run when the slider moves. So, when the slider moves, this trigger will show the first pop-up layer, but it will only show the layer if the slider value is between the bounds of the red circle. That means the slider value is between 165 and 210. If the slider value is not in this interval, I want to hide the layer, and that's why I'm adding this else statement here, which will hide my layer 1 if the slider value is not between 165 or 210. So the value has to be smaller than 165 or greater than 210 to fall in this else statement. So if I preview this right now, it works exactly as expected. The pop-up shows when I am within the bounds of the circle, and if I'm moving outside of the circle to the right or to the left, the pop-up becomes hidden. Awesome. Now, what I want to do is show the year once this layer shows up. And to do that, I'm just going to select the layer and add a trigger to change the state of the text box to normal once the timeline starts on this layer. Cool. And now the year will become visible once this layer is shown and will remain visible for the rest of the interaction. Now, if you want this text box to show up with an entrance animation, you can just add the animation to the text box like this, and the transition will apply once the element changes from hidden to visible. And the other thing I need to do is turn the red circle to green once the layer has been visited. So I'm gonna add a trigger to change the state of the circle from normal to green when the timeline starts on this layer. If you add a transition to this layer, just be aware that the timeline will start after the transition ends. So if I have this fade transition applied to the layer with a transition time of 0.7 seconds, the year and the green circle will only show up after the 0.07 seconds mark. Now, I'm not gonna apply any transition though, because I'm happy with how this looks, but just so you know. Now, we have done all the heavy lifting. All I have to do now is repeat this process for every other layer, which means check the slider values for the left and right borders of the marker, add the trigger to show the layer when the slider head is within those bounds, add the trigger to show the year when the timeline starts on the layer, add the trigger to make the red circle green when the timeline starts on the layer. And at the end of it all, you will end up with this interaction which can help you showcase a process or timeline of events. So I hope you find this video useful. Thank you for watching.